let me take a few minutes just to go over the concept of, your report of findings and patient education and different levels of patient education of saving time and effectiveness, okay? So the first thing that we always want to do is we always want to go one-to-one. We want the doctor to do it. The doctor is the first person that has to have the skill set. You'll never see a doctor who doesn't have the skill set, but a staff member does. You'll never see a patient like that, an office like that. A doctor that doesn't know how to get new patients, but a staff member does. A doctor who's not good at patient retention, but a staff member that is. You'll never see that. Everything is always off the doctor's lead. The doctor has to know everything, because typically he's the one training, okay? So the first thing that I always say is the doctor should do one-on-one, day 1 through 4, patient education to learn it, get a skill set up, be a black belt, okay? That's the first step. Now, to leverage time, and that you can easily do that seeing 150, 200 visits a week when you're efficient. Like, this is no problem to see 200 visits a week doing this, no problem. But I got to be above average to see 200 visits a week. I can't be slow and methodical and take forever. I got to be to the point, So that takes care of most offices. And then for doctors who want to leverage their time a little more and see more patients, then they can turn over the patient education part to a staff member. They can do that. Now, what can you not turn over to a staff member? Diagnosis. So there is a lot you can turn over to a staff member to leverage your time to see more patients, during the industrial hours. So that, and I do recommend that. But the ultimate level is to do what's called a group report of findings. And essentially what happens there, and I'm not going to get into it, but I just want to share the concept with you. It saves a lot of time. You can see a lot more patients. And essentially day 1 stays the same. Even in day 1, you'll have a staff assistant do most of the exam. They'll kind of do the exam. And I go into the details. In my consulting, I explain this in detail step by step. I'm just trying to share with you the big picture as far as how to save time and increase your value where you can see patients. So you can have a staff member do a lot of the things, even a lot of the exam, where you finalize the major points of the exam and the major points of the consultation. Okay? And we teach that. That will save you a lot of time. And then doing a group report of findings. So day 1, you can do it. Day 2, you do it. But essentially, there's no patient education on day 2. What we do is we defer it to the 3rd day. And in the 3rd day, typically what happens is you'll have 2 group report of findings in the week, one like in the afternoon and one in the evening. So the people who can't make the mornings can make the afternoon, and the ones who can't make the afternoon can make the morning. And every time you see a patient, you'll do a day 1 or 2, and then you'll see them 1, 2, or 3 visits until they get to the next group report of findings. It might be 1 visit, it might be 2. It's no more than 3. And then it's a group. So now you're doing all the patient education in a group setting. Well, that's a huge leverage of time as opposed to one-on-one. And then they're separated out individually after the group, and their biomarkers are shown, and they're asked what care plan that they want. And again, I'm just being general of how, so you see the big picture. And then a big way to leverage your time is to have a staff member that knows how to give the presentation. Okay? Now, I never recommend that a staff member know how to give the presentation and the biomarkers, because you're not going to have much authority there. There's some things the doctor has to do under state law, okay? But the maximum amount of time to save for maximum efficiency and highest productivity is for the staff member to do the majority of the 3-day report on the 3rd day, even the 1st day and the 2nd day. The staff member's trained how to do the majority of it. And even give this presentation. And the doctor just on day 1 hits some of the major points. On day 2, he just confirms some of the major points. And on day 3, on the group report findings, then he just nails the major points. And the staff handles all the generic stuff. That's the highest efficiency and utilization of time. And then on top of that, work with associate doctors. So when you have staff members that help do 3-day reports with associate doctors, that's when you have tremendous amount of flexibility, huge leverage of time, and can see a lot of patients. Okay? So there's different degrees. So doctors who, typically who are already doing group refindings, let's say they're seeing 200 or 300 visits a week, I will not tell them to go and start doing a day 1 through 4, because that'll take a lot more time and that'll bog them down. That'll slow them down. Those offices, I'll say, let's learn the concepts of day 1 through 4 and all the business and patient education concepts. And it's very easy now to transfer those concepts into what's called a 3-day report with a group report of findings on the 3rd day. Okay? That's what I'll do with them. Doctors that are seeing 50, 60 visits a week, 80 visits, I'm like, no, you need to do this on your own. You need to get good at it, because you're not doing very well in practice. You're below average. And then doctors who are seeing like 130, 140, like you're seeing 130, he's going to shoot up the 150, 170 real quick. He's going to max out. He's going to hit right up to his what's called the tipping point. Tipping point is the last 20%. And most doctors can see between 180 to 220 visits a week, depending on your skill level and comfort zone. But you'll be right up. He's going to go, this is going to take him right up to where he needs an associate doctor. That's what this is going to do. It's going to max him out. And it's not going to be worth spending all the time and energy it takes to increase his practice another 10 or 20 visits when he should just shift gears, leverage his time, go for an associate doctor, and wham, create a void. You have to create a void, because once you're at your tipping point, you can't grow. It's Mother Nature. If a glass is full, it won't take any more water. That's what happens with tipping points. You have to bring in another glass. Then it starts to fill up. And it fills up real fast. So it totally depends on where you are in your practice, where you'd want to do it. But you got to know the basics, because we cover a ton of basics here, don't we? You got to know the principles and the basics and all that. And then we can apply it. And then you have to know it first. We can teach a staff member to help out. That'll leverage you up quickly. Then we can go to the 3-day. That'll leverage you up quickly. And the only thing that I hear is people will say, well, some of my patients won't like that. Well, here's the deal. When you have a staff member that does it, yeah, it's not going to be as effective as you for the most part, and you'll lose a few more patients. But is it well worth the vacuum it created for the number of patients you can see now? Yes. And that's what chiropractors don't understand. Same when you do a group report of findings. Will there be a certain amount? It's not going to be as personal, not as effective. So will you lose some more patients when you do that? Yes. But for the vacuum it created, is it worth it? Yes. Another common analogy I'll give you is a lot of doctors never go to open room adjusting. They don't go to it because of their own comfort level, and they'll say, well, I'll have patients that won't like it. Well, it's the 80-20 rule. 80% of the new patients won't even know any better. They'll just come and follow through. 17% of the patients, they'll be okay with it. There'll only be 3% that really won't like it and quit. But the 3% that quit, you'll be able to grow, you'll be able to double and triple your practice, you'll be able to double and triple your practice with open room adjusting. So see, what happens is people hang on to something when they shouldn't, because they don't know when to switch gears. Switch gears means switch systems to create a vacuum. And you can't use the same system from start to finish. In other words, when you're in first gear, this is a really good analogy. Like manual transmission in a car, put it in first gear. Well, it's pretty easy to get going, up to a certain amount of RPMs. Once you get past 80 percentile, how much harder and how much energy does it take to go a little bit faster? It's the same analogy. You'll get to that point with your practice, and it's not worth stepping on the gas to try to go an extra 3 to 5 miles an hour. It's better to switch gears, go to second gear. And that's the analogy with practice. And so instead of take yourself up to your 80th percentile efficiency, Don't expend all, because all that energy can be easily expended with training staff members or associate doctors and treating patients, as opposed to busting your butt, you know. And chiropractors don't get that. So you do have to let go and know when to let go, and you have to know when to change a system. What does a change a system mean? Change gears. You got to know when to change gears to leverage your time. And it all depends on where you're at in practice. And that's what we do. We teach each one of them. And that's also why, like I've taken doctors who started on their own. We take them up to max. They'll do day 1 through 4s on their own. They learn it. They'll take their practice up to 170, 180, 200, and then we'll bring in an associate doctor. Then that'll create a vacuum. And then we'll also train the staff member how to do preliminary consultations and preliminary exams. That frees up the doctor even more. That's a huge leverage of time. And then we'll take that same doctor and we'll go, okay, now let's do the group report of findings. You see? And now that frees up a tremendous amount of time as opposed to one-on-one. And then if you really free it up more, then the staff member does most of day 1, most of day 2, and does the presentation. The doctor just hits the main points in day 1, day 2, and the main points in day 3. And that's a huge leverage of time. All of those are different degrees of building a business. And it all depends on where you're at, where you start. But you have to know the basics. You have to know the principles first.